Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a real clash of titans, traditional learning going head-to-head with AI-powered self-education. Seriously, it's a high-stakes showdown between the classic system we all grew up with and this dynamic new paradigm that's literally rewriting the rules of how we study and learn. Let's just jump right in. So, look at the sheer contrast in architecture here. On the left, we've got the classic classroom. We all know the drill, right? A static curriculum, a strict one-size-fits-all pace, and honestly, pretty limited real-time feedback. I mean, a single teacher just can't answer 30 questions at the exact same time, unless they've got some kind of undocumented superpower. But then on the right side, we have AI scaffolding. We're talking about generative, adaptive platforms that dynamically shift and adjust to what you, the individual learner, actually need. They give you personalized pacing, instant feedback, and completely custom learning pathways. Sounds like a dream in theory, but does it actually hold up in practice? Well, let's look at the hard data.
Okay, I'm going to hit you with a rapid-fire sequence of stats straight from some recent systematic reviews on AI learning. First up, 25%. Across a bunch of structured models, including systems using Bayesian knowledge tracing, researchers found that AI-driven adaptive systems allow students to hit mastery up to 25% faster than traditional methods. That is a massive, game-changing acceleration in the time it takes to actually conquer a complex subject.
Let's keep that momentum going. How about performance gains jumping from 15 to 35%? In quasi-experimental studies, looking at everything from high school computer science courses to higher education biology and IT training, students using AI-supported platforms consistently beat out the control groups by this margin on their assessments. We are talking about significantly higher test scores and just overall better academic achievement across a wildly diverse range of subjects. And here's the final data drop for you in this sequence, 40%. AI systems can actually boost student engagement by up to 40%. Because the instruction is so tailored, and because the feedback is right there, immediate and interactive, not delayed by a week, students literally just stay on task longer. They don't check out or give up when they get stuck because the system naturally adapts right to their current level of understanding. Now, this visual brilliantly illustrates exactly what all those numbers mean over time. We're tracking knowledge retention over a period of weeks. Check out that red dashed line. That represents traditional learning. See how it follows this much slower, gradual, exponential growth pattern? It literally takes weeks of repeated exposure to slowly drag that retention rate up. Now compare that to the solid blue curve of AI adaptive learning. It is incredibly steep right out of the gate. Personalized pathways allow learners to lock in that higher knowledge retention way, way faster.
So how does this actually build into the concept of mastery? Well, this bar chart strips away all the complexity to show us one very simple truth. The red bar, traditional learning, takes roughly 8 weeks to hit the mastery threshold in this specific computational model. But look at the blue bar. That's AI adaptive learning, hitting that exact same threshold in just 5 weeks. The AI approach drastically shrinks the time required to conquer the material, simply by tailoring the content directly to the individual's own learning speed.
All right, let's just pause here for a second. I want to intentionally slow things down because when we look at those massive gains, we've got to ask a really critical question. Are we actually learning or are we just mimicking? This brings up what philosophers call the Chinese room risk. Think about it. If an AI is just handing us the answers, are we truly forming knowledge? Or are we just taking a massive educational shortcut to create lazy, superficial learners who can ace a test but understand absolutely nothing? Basically just parroting back answers like highly caffeinated birds. This exact fear is perfectly captured by the concept of cognitive offloading. Researchers have been explicitly warning us that an uncritical reliance on AI risks this exact phenomenon happening. Basically, if you use a tool to just instantly penetrate a text, completely bypassing the mental effort you'd normally need to struggle with material, well, you undermine your own active information processing. Sure, you might get the right answer right then, but you haven't built the neural pathways to actually retain the knowledge later. It's a very, very real danger. So, how do we solve this? Well, researchers recently ran a totally fascinating pre-registered field experiment with 334 university students to rigorously test this exact fear. They gave these students some dense economics textbook material to study for 25 minutes right before an exam. The students were split into 3 groups. You had a control group with 0 AI, a group with restricted AI access, meaning they had to read all alone for 10 minutes first, and a third group with unrestricted AI access, who had the tool from the very first second. The researchers' logic here was that forcing students to read first would prevent that dreaded cognitive offloading.
But here is the massive surprise twist. The results completely contradicted what the researchers thought would happen. The unrestricted AI access group absolutely demolished the control group by 0.34 standard deviations on the unaided test. But even more shockingly, they significantly outperformed the restricted AI group by 0.21 standard deviations. Let that sink in. Forcing students to read independently before giving them AI actually hurt their performance compared to just giving them full access the whole time. Wild, right? So the absolutely crucial point here is, why did this happen? Why on earth did unlimited access lead to better, deeper learning? Well, it all comes down to how the students actually behaved. Restricting AI access caused this huge accumulation of unresolved questions. When those restricted students finally got access, they exhibited an intensive, really disruptive burst of prompting. It was a massive spike of interaction that just totally broke their learning flow. Continuous availability, on the other hand, allowed the AI to act as a natural instructional scaffold. They didn't use it as a cheap shortcut, they used it as a steady, deeply integrated tool. Let's actually walk through the exact steps of how those successful unrestricted students behaved. Look at step 1. Even with the AI sitting right there, ready to go, they actively chose to read the textbook independently for an average of 5.7 minutes before ever typing a single word. Then, moving to step 2, they engaged in gradual, much shorter prompting over time. And finally, step 3, they used the AI to resolve immediate confusion right when it happened. This is huge. It proves that unrestricted AI didn't crowd out their reading effort. It beautifully and naturally complemented it. This data completely reframes how we should view AI in education. Prompting is a cognitive act. It is a core literacy now. Crafting an effective AI prompt requires technical skill, rhetorical awareness, and a really deep sense of task ownership. It demands that users iteratively refine their inputs and critically evaluate whatever output they get back. In short, successful prompting perfectly mirrors the dimensions of self-directed learning, setting your goals, monitoring your progress, and evaluating the outcomes. But here is the catch, and honestly, it's a big one. Who actually benefits the most from these tools in the real world? The researchers ran heterogeneity analyses and found that AI tutors are definitely not a magic bullet for everyone. They proved most effective for students who had lower baseline knowledge, meaning they genuinely needed the help, but critically, they needed to already have strong self-regulation skills. We are talking about students with low procrastination tendencies and a low preference for distraction. If a student was highly distractible, they saw absolutely no significant gains from using the AI. 0. Which brings us to the core takeaway of this entire analysis, perfectly summarized by this quote directly from the researchers. AI amplifies the returns to structured, goal-directed learning for students who already possess the behavioral foundations for effective study. Basically, AI cannot compensate for weak self-regulation. It is purely a productivity amplifier for the autonomous, disciplined learner. It takes the focus you already have and just multiplies the results. So I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. We know AI is this incredible scaffold that absolutely accelerates mastery and retention. But, and this is key, only if you already know how to pay attention. So if AI only amplifies existing self-regulation, how do we teach the profoundly human skill of focus in an age of infinite technological distraction? Seriously, that is the real educational challenge of our generation. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep exploring.